Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai, Jai Ram. Hey, I'm Dennis Hawk, and this is the Revival, where we attempt to connect ancient wisdom to the challenges of the present world. Through yoga, mythology, mantra, we spotlight voices bringing love, healing, and compassion to their particular corner of the world. And today we have Sandra Sluberski, and this is an interview I've been looking forward to for a long time because of kind of the commonality. You're a teacher, a guide, a vocalist, a storyteller, who beautifully weaves together yoga, mythology, mantra, and the deeper currents of a spiritual practice, which I really can resonate to. But let's start at kind of the beginning. Where were you born? What year were you born? And the only reason I ask that is because it kind of helps me generationally, where I am. So I can, where I am in the process, my own process of speaking. I can get so out of touch, so anyway,
No
that's
problem.
that. So where,
No,
when?
My hometown is Pensacola, Florida, and I lived there up until I was 23. At the age of 23, I then moved to the capital city of Florida, Tallahassee, to attend grad school. After grad school, I ended up actually being on the staff of the music school at Florida State University. Then, after 4 years of that, I switched over to being on the staff of the School of Film and Television at FSU. And met a man there, married him. We ended up moving to Rochester, New York, yes, across the country. And I've been up here in upstate New York ever since 1997. So
Wow.
here we are.
What a journey. And so your majors were in music and voice?
Yes, all three of my degrees, plus master's and doctoral degree, are in voice performance. And my doctoral degree is a little different because most people think of a doctoral degree as a PhD.
Mhm.
That's a Doctor of Philosophy. That's actually mostly research driven. My degree is the DM, Doctor of Music. So that is approximately 50% research and then 50% performance. So it combines the best of both worlds. There's also the DMA, which is the Doctor of Musical Arts, but that's primarily performance driven. So I like the DM. Because I love research, but I also love the performing. And that really opened up a pathway for me because in high school, I was the shy little kid. I was the one who stayed in the background. But when you major in music, you better be willing to get up in front of an audience and bare your soul, baby.
Amen. Well,
By the way,
I love the path, and
yeah,
obviously you're following a passion,
yeah.
and that, and to me that that makes a lot of sense. And some places where we intersect, like you have a DM, I have an MDiv,
Oh, yeah,
master of divinity. So we're
yeah.
kind of there's a D and an M in there somehow. They fit, right?
However, for my undergraduate degree, I went to a church-sponsored college, a Christian college, and anyone who majored in any of the arts, whether it was music or speech or instrumental playing, we were required to minor in Bible. So I was taking
Okay.
the same courses as the guys who were in the seminary track. I wasn't learning how to be a preacher, but I had to take the same study courses, which actually turned out to be a good thing because much of the vocal literature, especially for oratorio and cantata, is of course based on Latin or, commonly spoken translations of the Bible. And then later, when I got into yoga mythology and started learning mantras in different languages, especially Sanskrit and Punjabi, it was amazing to do kind of a comparison between these very, very ancient texts and the much more contemporary text of the Bible. So the Bible's the new kid on the block, right? The Vedas
Yep.
and the Upanishads, they're much older.
I'm getting all excited. I don't know how many of our viewers are going to get as excited as you and I do about this, but I'm open. So, that, some will click with it,
Yes.
but yeah. For me, Greek, Latin, those
yeah.
mythologies, I translated first, and then the biblical literature, and then found Sanskrit. So what moved you toward yoga?
back when I had first moved up to Rochester, my late husband was developing what is called cardiomyopathy, enlarged heart. So
Uh,
he was having severe health problems, so much so that he had to step away from his teaching position and take pretty much enforced retirement. Very stressful. We had a lot of doctor's visits, a lot of emergency hospitalizations, and I needed something to relieve stress. So I began to take a stretch and tone class. Um, that incorporated yoga stretching, ballet bar exercises, things like that. And that was my first introduction to yoga. So I came into the game kind of late. Then there came an opportunity for an outside person to come in and actually teach 45-minute yoga class once a week in the mornings at the music school where I was on the faculty for 25 years. So I took that. I would come in at 10 a.m. and just fell in love with it. Took it for 2.5 years and then started talking to the instructor. What kind of training did you get? What did it take for you to do this? And she openly shared with me everything she
mhm.
studied, how long it took. And then I started taking an online 200-hour training. That's your level one, basic yoga training.
Yeah.
The very week that I finished it and did my final project, COVID shut it down. Boom, gone. So obviously can't
Oh
teach at
my
any
goodness.
studios. So I began to do online teaching. And as a result of that, the yoga studio which awarded me my 200 hours said, hey, if you will proofread this new 300-hour program that we're releasing week by week before we release each week, we'll let you take the 300-hour and then perhaps you could join our teaching staff after you earn that. So I did that. That pretty much took up all of COVID. And then I joined their teaching staff in 2022 at the Lifted Lotus Yoga Teacher Training online. They've trained tens of thousands of people in all the years they've been going.
Wow.
It's astounding. And this is the best part. They let me choose what classes I would like to teach. So I teach now the 300-hour study group on Mondays, the Kundalini 1-hour class on Tuesdays, and Yoga Mythology 1-hour class on Wednesday, which is a combination of teaching the story and then doing a yoga flow which embodies the story in the yoga poses. And this was an invention of mine. Yes, that is my book. Came out in 2022. Yeah.
It may be backwards on here.
No,
It
it isn't. It's
reads,
not.
oh, it, taking the myths to the mat, which I
Yes.
absolutely, absolutely love.
Well, I
And
wrote it in my own voice, and so it's
I
very,
know you did,
yeah,
and
lots of jokes.
it's got some great humor in it. You know, I was laughing last night because I had already read it and I underlined a whole bunch of stuff and but I'd always underline the funny parts. You know, the jokes. It's like, oh yeah, yeah, you know.
Well, I wrote that because actually created a course for 25 continuing credit hours called Taking Myths to the Mat. And I wrote that as a companion book because a lot of people said, gee, we wish we had a book that we could take notes in. Great, so I did it. But I wrote it because a lot of yoga teachers appreciate the stories that are behind the yoga poses, but they didn't really know how to incorporate them into their classes. So that's
Hmm.
what hopefully that's the gap this book fills. And by the way,
Well,
Dennis, one of
I believe it does.
yeah,
You know, if I were still teaching physical practice of yoga, I
yeah,
would be using this because it is a great for yoga teachers out there, and I've got a lot of them on my my list of people that will get this.
yeah,
But for the yoga teachers, you know, the metaphors of each pose, you know,
yeah.
that we go through are incredibly powerful. And it's beautiful to know the roots. You know, what is that underneath there? And
And
because those metaphors run us, they change us.
they do, and they're just as applicable today as they were 6,000 years ago. And it's like, as you say, there are many layers. It's like an onion. You peel one layer off, there's another one. They just go deeper and deeper.
I know, and I love the book. I've gone
Thank
back
you.
and back and back to it, and you know, for my own practice and modifying my own practice, and
Thank you.
you know, it's just a beautiful work. So you know, just to the audience, you know, please pick it up.
Could
You'll want
I
to.
could I mention that the book is also available as an ebook on Kindle and as an audiobook on audible.com.
And don't you do Audible books
Yes, I
and
I
things
did
like
that book.
that?
There's also another novel by an Italian American author, which I narrated her book for her. Yeah, so
Yeah,
yes.
that's your thing, you know,
I do
working.
voiceover work, yes.
Yeah, you do voiceover work.
So
Explain that a
commercials.
little bit for those who
Sure.
don't understand what voiceover is.
Sure. What it basically means is that I'm an actor, but you don't see my face, you only hear my voice. So I've done character voices for animations. I've done narrators for commercials, both industrials and non-industrials. I've done narrations for books. I've done background voices in regular feature-length films. Like, say, a voice that's coming over a phone, a voice that's heard off screen. And a lot of this is possible because my husband, Dave Sluberski, is an audio engineer. And through his company, West Rush Media, LLC, he gets these jobs. He's able to also offer me as a voice talent. And so
Oh, nice.
we really work together quite well.
Oh,
Good thing.
that's convenient, you know?
Kinda.
That's fantastic. I noticed that there's a Kundalini thread in your bio as well. I picked that
Yes.
up. I think, don't you have a Kundalini name?
I do. I should say this for your listeners who aren't familiar with it. Kundalini is a branch of yoga that is based equally on the poses, asanas, and also on the pranayama. And you may say, well, hatha yoga does that. Kundalini takes it one step deeper, where hatha yoga will have you hold a pose for a short time and then you transition to something else. In Kundalini, you're often holding poses for anywhere from 5 to 11 minutes, and sometimes repeated movements. So it's helpful to have chanting and pranayama going on so that it keeps you steady. Yep, very, very steady. And it's traditional for a practitioner of Kundalini to receive a spiritual name. Mine was given to me by the KRI, the Kundalini Research International, and it is Seva Sangita Kaur. All women who practice Kundalini have the last name of Kaur. It means lioness or princess.
Beautiful.
Yeah, just as all men who practice Kundalini have the last spiritual name of Singh, which means prince or lion. Seva means selfless service. It is to serve. Sangita Gita means song, and Sangita means song of myself. So the rough translation of Seva Sangita Kaur is she who gives selfless service through music, through song.
Wow. And Kundalini comes out of the Sikh tradition, right?
It does. And the Sikh tradition uses the language called Punjabi and the script Gurmukhi. So these are offshoots in a way of the ancient Sanskrit.
That's fantastic.
It's a very beautiful tradition, I must say.
Yes, it is. And, I've had the chance to experience it myself many, many times and have a lot of Kundalini friends as well.
I have to tell you, though, Dennis, what got me into Kundalini was not necessarily yoga related. In all of my years teaching voice, and I taught voice for 42 years, one of my adult students was a Presbyterian minister, and he was great. He played guitar. He loved to sing Scottish ballads. He told me one time when he found out that I did yoga, he said, "Oh, my wife and I do Kundalini yoga." And I thought, this is a Christian minister and you're doing a Sikh-related yoga? I got to know more. So I started looking into it, and that got me into it.
Oh, that's fantastic. Let me circle back. Was your family a spiritual, quote unquote, religious family? Did you?
When I was a little kid, up until I was about probably in 8th grade, they would take me to the Lutheran church every Sunday where I grew up. My dad sang in the choir for a couple of years, and then his business got him too busy. My mom was not particularly what I would say spiritual, but, she wanted to make sure us kids had some exposure. And then when I was starting my freshman year of high school, that was, okay, I'm going to give away my age. In 1974, I was a freshman. That was the year when a lot of racial riots were happening in high schools down south because of integration, for students of color to be integrated into mostly all white high schools. The high school I would have gone to as a public school was having to call out the National Guard to quell the riots. My parents were of the opinion that they didn't want their kid going to a high school where she could possibly get, maced or beat up. So they sent me for a year to a local Christian high school. Really a sweet school, very tiny. I loved it so much and made so many good friends there that they let me stay for all of my high school career. And when I graduated in 1977, I had a graduating class of 53 students. This next year would be our 50th high school reunion. So,
Oh my gosh.
but that was a game changer, because then I was exposed to pretty much spiritual training every single day, because one of the things you have in a Christian high school is daily chapel. And I ended up getting involved in the church there. I was singing in the choir. I was one of maybe 2 high school students in the adult choir. And good thing I majored in music, because I was able to stay in it. So that helped a lot.
Well, was this Christian school a Lutheran school, or was it?
No, it was a fundamental Baptist, which worked for me for a number of years, and then I went on to other things. In the mid 80s, I actually got into and became a practicing Wiccan, because I was tapping.
That's a 180.
It is. I was tapping into my ancestral roots on my mother's side as Cherokee. So, yeah, there's a lot of mixed blood here. But I wanted to tap into that, so I began to study the shamanistic earth-related religions, such as Wicca and Druidism, Celtic religions. And then that took me down the path. And then when I discovered yoga, I really dove deep into the ancient Vedic and early Hindu philosophies. And I find, having read the Bible 3 times, having read the Quran once, having read the Vedas and the Upanishads, I find that there is a great beauty in all spiritual paths. The difficulty is when they are taken over and turned into fundamentalist, militaristic, or I should say militant, and then they become oppressive. And that, I don't cotton to that.
Right. Again, the excitement when you're telling your story, it's like, okay, I was a Lutheran minister. I went down that path, a lot of parochial school, a lot of parochial education. My mother and that family claim Irish Cherokee blood from Oklahoma. My wife is Mohican, so we had the opportunity for 20 years to do ceremony, and including Sundance in South Dakota, and some some beautiful ways too. That what I see, and I'm not trying to project my stuff onto you, is just an opening up. That I mean the foundation was laid, and you just took it and just opened up like a beautiful lotus. I love the ecumenical approach, that you take. It's I'm reading a book right now about all of the people who brought kirtan to the West, and Chan Johnson also takes that approach to kirtan. And to yoga. That we need to envelop and be inclusive, and in our path, and I love that in the book. You make sure that you include people. The book is inclusive, and it allows an open door for anyone. So I didn't mean to sort of take a side view, but it was just like, oh, you're reflecting a lot of what I've been through. It's like this is kind of cool. This is why there may be part 1, part 2, part 3. We'll see how this goes. But let's I want to explore a little bit, not probably a lot more. I want to explore the mythology. For instance, is there a particular story, if you follow the thread of the story, the mythology, pose or poses, and the mantra, what would be your favorite?
I know so many that it would be hard to pin them down. I mean, I actually know and have taught hundreds of yoga mythology classes, and each one is different with a different story. I always end with a mantra and a mudra that pairs with the pose, so that people have more takeaways physically and spiritually, and it's not just a yoga class. I suppose one of my favorites is the story behind the pose that we often see in little statues in Indian groceries and Indian restaurants. And that is called Natajarasa, King Dancer Pose. Some also call it Tandavasana, Dancer Pose. And that is, well, let me grab it and I'll show it to you online. It's this pose of Shiva.
Yep.
He's dancing in a circle of fire. The circle of fire represents the cycle of birth, life, death, and rebirth. So it's the reincarnation, which is believed in. Now, if you look closely, you'll see that he is standing on a very small person. It looks like a child, and most people say, oh, Shiva's standing on a child. He's a brute. No, it's not a child. It's actually the ego. So they would have called it in the old days a dwarf. Perhaps we would use the phrase little person, but it's not even a person. It's the ego. It's the part that wants to take over. So although the rest of him is disconnected from the earth, the foot is lifted up, the arms are up, one foot has to remain down to tamp down the ego. Why? Because the ego wants to take over and run the show. And that's the problem that we see very often in headlines today, is that many people in prominent places are ruled by their egos. They are, in a sense, kindergartners with no restrictions. And so their greed, their selfishness run the show. You can't destroy the ego. If you destroy the ego, then you've destroyed your mind. It's part of your mind's makeup. Remember the id, the ego, the superego? But Shiva says, keep it tamped down. And then the rest of you is free to rise up, to lift up, and become part of this great circle of life. And yes, you can start humming Elton John from The Lion King if you like.
Love it. Nataraja, Nataraja, Hara
Yeah.
Hara, Nataraja.
Yeah.
Yeah, the beauty of that. And how many, I'm just curious, how many fires are there around there? Are there 13?
And let's find out. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15.
15. I wonder
Yeah,
what the
kind of curious. I'm not sure. And he is also on a lotus blossom, which of course stands for wisdom and purity.
well, that's 3 5s.
That's true. That's true.
You know, Shiva's number is 5.
There
so
you go.
That would be 3 5s. So that would make some sense.
Yeah.
And I love that one. And then do you teach dancer pose?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And that one is a beautiful one-legged balancing pose, which is much more advanced because it involves a back bend as well. Since you're holding your front arm up, and then the back arm ideally is holding the back foot up. But you know, at the age that I'm at, I tend to be really careful with stuff like that.
Wait till you get to be an octogenarian and try to do dancer pose. It's like, you know, after hip replacements, knee replacements, and all that kind of stuff, you kind of imagine it, you know, and you can put it in your imagination.
Isn't there a new movie out about an octogenarian, incredibly bright creatures? Oh, sorry, octopus. Sorry,
octopus. Yes, absolutely. You know, you mentioned something I think that's really important. To the you know, that small childlike part of us, you know, that and it's that a bit narcissistic.
Oh, yeah.
Not a bit, maybe more. And we do live in a world where things often get ruled now by ego.
Yes.
Okay. How does what you do tap into that and help?
Well, we'll start with a basic yoga class, which when I teach it, I start out with everyone seated chanting Om, which is called a bij or a seed syllable. Om starts making you aware of the vibration of your voice throughout your body. You feel it in the chest and in the head cavity. It also makes you aware of the breath because you have to breathe in and then dole out your air chanting Om. Then we get into the yoga poses. All of the poses, if they're cued well, are paired up with either inhales or exhales. In Kundalini, we also pair some poses with different types of breath, such as breath of fire, which is a rapid inhale-exhale. But this breath awareness takes you out of your brain and puts you a little bit more into your body. And so you start thinking, oh, right, my body's my partner. I don't rule it like a horse driving a cart. We're working tandem. We're together, pulling the cart together. And then at the end of class, I end with a full mantra, even if it's just 3 or 4 words or longer than that. So you have to start thinking about what are the meaning of the words. And of course, I guide people through that. And then we do a hand gesture, a mudra, which often pairs with the mantras, such as lotus, which you demonstrated earlier, so that you start thinking about things outside yourself. And the problem with this little ego guy is the ego is all about self. Shiva takes us up out of ourselves and brings us up to a higher realm. So the fire not only represents the fire of the cycle of reincarnation, but it also represents that connection to the divine fire. To the Atman, the universal divine God, in whatever form you may wish to address God. So I find that yoga brings us away from our phones and into ourselves as creatures who are actually connected to a much higher source, whatever you may believe that source to be. And that's why I respect pantheistic religions, which are religions with many deities, as well as monotheistic religions, those which have the single deity. Because as Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese monk, said, all paths lead to the same destination.
Or many ways to look at the same reality.
Yes.
You know, and I think there's beauty in that, and there's beauty in respecting.
There
The other
is.
day I looked up, I said, I was just curious, and it's how many languages are there in the world? And it's like, well, it said there's 7,159. Well, I don't know who
Okay.
took the time to count them, but it was an, AI thing, so I said, okay, all right, we have 7,159 ways, probably at least that many names for God.
Yeah.
There are avenues to look at God. And then I researched further, and in some traditions there are thousands of names for God. And
Yeah.
so it's can I tell a little story? And I hate taking away from the person I'm hosting, but it fits here. And I was doing my kirtan training with David Newman down at an ashram down in Florida, and we had a Shiva puja there, and we were doing the 108 names of Shiva. And as I listened, and then I went home and I did the research, it's like, oh, each one of these names is someone's experience of God. And it was like a light turned on for me, that we all have experienced God in different ways,
Yes.
and at different times in our lives, even, so those names can just pop out like that. And which is why I love doing kirtan, because of, just saying those
Yes.
names, over and over, the name of God. And now you also took kirtan training as
I
well.
did.
So,
I did. I took it with Mike Cohen. He's the
yep.
founder of Kirtan Leader Institute based out of Colorado.
Yeah, I know him well. I played with him in Chicago. So,
Yeah, he also has kirtan band called Shakti Groove.
yes, 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 indeed. He In Chicago, he gathered like all of the kirtan people that were in Chicago, which is what wasn't easy to do because they were kind of competitive. But he pulled us all. I was up north, but he pulled us all together, and we did a great event, and I got to play my flutes, and
Nice.
it was a fun time. And I love Mike, and if you get a chance to talk to him, tell him hello for me,
I
please.
certainly
I
will.
would appreciate that.
Now,
Uh,
backing up just a minute, Dennis, you mentioned when you did your Shiva puja that you chanted the 108 names. Did anyone ever explain to you why specifically 108?
Well, at number of completion, that's the way I understand 108. Tell me what.
Well, there are 108 beads in a japamala, which is a Hindu prayer rosary, prayer beads. But each number stands for something specific. The 1 stands for the universal divine. The 0 is the circle with no ending, no beginning. So it is universal, and it is our relationship with the divine. Always is, always
Mhm.
was, always will be. And then the number 8, which you think of as like that, turn it on its side, and it's the universal symbol for infinity.
Yes,
So it's the auspicious number in Hinduism. In the United States, if you have an emergency, you dial 911. In India, you dial 108.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
That absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
And so, how do you use mantra? Do you lead kirtan?
I do.
Okay, and do you lead it alone? Do you have a group of people with you? How do you do that?
Um, I as the kirtan leader, or wala as they call, I usually am leading from the harmonium, which is a small hand pump organ.
Yeah, I've got one right over here.
But I have but I have several regulars who often join me on hand percussion. Some bring tanpura, small stringed instruments, and doing that. Most of the time, it's me, myself, and I, but I always bring extra instruments so when people come in, they can at least, if nothing else, do a little handshaker.
Great,
And
great.
then what I do is I lead it once a month, and I always have a different theme. Actually, our May one was just a week and a half ago, and don't laugh. The theme was Run DMC. And you may
No,
say,
I'm not.
"What?
I'm not laughing.
What? Why are you naming it after a rap group?" Well, I made it stand for Run Dharma Mantra Chanting. Run DMC. So all of the mantras were about your dharma, your sacred purpose. Why are you even put on this earth? And we had a wonderful time doing things in different languages. Primarily, I try to keep it to Sanskrit, but I want them to have a global aspect, so I always like to pull in different languages. So every month has something different.
That's fantastic. So you lead kirtan once a month. How do you? Because this is one of the the kind of exploratory things of the revival. It was started by a woman who called me out of the blue uh, in 2024.
Okay.
I think it was about March. Rhapsody Namtu is her name.
Ooh, pretty.
And she told me she wanted to talk, and I said, okay, she's a friend on Facebook. And she said she had attended one of my kirtans 10 years ago. And she said, it changed my life. You know, you never know when these things are going to happen, but, and she became a yoga instructor, and, that she went down that path. But she asked me the question, she said, do you think, that if we got 1 million people chanting that it would change things, because things were going
Yes.
fast down the
Yes.
tubes, in
Yes.
terms of where we are as a country. And I just didn't hesitate. I said, of course, of course.
Yeah.
Uh, and but what then we discovered is that, well, there are 1 million people chanting. The question is, can we connect with one another?
Mm.
And in these communities that are being formed, and one of the things that we discovered as we were researching was that people like you are creating positive, compassionate, loving communities.
Yes.
And that ultimately will change things.
The vibration of our voices, actually, and this is not woo-woo spiritual crazy stuff. This is actual physics. This is hard physics. The vibrations of our voices produce frequencies which do not stop once we stop hearing them. Our hearing range is quite limited. These frequencies continue going out. And so if you have 1 million people chanting, you raise the frequency of the world. You raise the hum. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a little bit like chaos theory, which says that if a butterfly flaps its wings in Colorado, it could cause a tidal wave in Irian Jaya. Well, these frequencies actually are affecting people on a global basis, which is why we have to have that balance. We really have to have that balance. And that's why, I hate to say it, evil doesn't quite ever go away, because if everything were wonderful and good, then we would not be able to appreciate what is truly good. It's some famous author once wrote, how can you appreciate the glory of a sunrise if there's not a dark cloud occasionally?
Absolutely.
So it intensifies the reason why we chant and the words that we chant.
Yeah. I think it's bringing that balance, that I think we're out of balance right now,
Yes.
as a globe, and
Koyanis Gatsi. We are
Yeah.
out of balance.
Is that what language?
That is the Hopi Indian tribe. Koyanis
Okay.
Gatsi. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we are right now. What the work that you do is to pull that back in balance.
Toward balance. So there's
And so-
always that fulcrum teetering, balance up, balance out. Can I get it to even out a little bit more?
Yeah. And, that's, and that's a non-judgmental way of, I worked in social justice for a long time, and it's not that I don't believe in equity and justice. That's not what I'm about to say. But what I found myself being as angry and judgmental and as the extreme on the other side.
Yes.
And there's something that brought me back to center and said, I just need to be loving to me first,
I can tell you what that is. Human beings are the only creatures who are able to make a choice to live above their primal animal instincts, because a wolf is always going to be a wolf, and it gets its food, it has its pups, it might fight for leadership in the pack, but it doesn't really try to take care of anyone outside of its pups or its pack. As a human being, I can transcend, give me this, give me that, I want it all for myself, and say, let's make it good for everybody, not just my community, my tribe, but for my country, my nation, for my whole planet. I can choose to do that and rise above my animal instinct.
Yeah, absolutely. And that animal instinct. I'm gonna circle back to ego for a minute.
Okay.
As we define that, and this is just me curious. I'm probing. Okay.
Okay.
So,
probe away.
When you see, and this is a personal struggle, by the way, of seeing, because I've done the studies of the Indian text and the biblical text, and the idea of ego almost parallels original sin.
Yes. In Hinduism, there is not really a concept of heaven or hell. There's
Right.
not even really a concept of evil. The concept is that things are out of balance and can be
Hmm.
brought back into balance, which is why a practitioner of Ayurveda is the sister science of yoga, which strives for wholeness in the body. So it's really an early type of medicinal approach. Ayurveda practitioners will prescribe you a mantra to chant, and they'll prescribe to you a pranayama breath exercise to do as part of your wellness road. So they
Okay.
realize that the importance of chanting and breathing consciously is just as important as medicine or changes of diet.
Yes. I'm still, let me cycle back again. Ego, this is from my understanding, and maybe somebody else is out there too, because when we hear ego, doesn't it sometimes get tangled up with Hebrews? The idea of
Yes.
pride, and which is a
Yes.
different animal, that's it can be connected, I think, pride and ego,
Of
but
course it can.
but
But you
ego,
can you can also have pride for the accomplishments of your children, for the
yes,
accomplishments of your
yeah.
students. But pride when it's all about you, like I'm number one, I'm the best, that just makes your ego grow bigger and bigger until finally it gets really hard to tamp it down.
I love that. I love it. We have a theme going here.
Kinda, yeah.
Abs- Absolutely. Uh, now, if you're the three things that you do, I mean, you do more than three. I mean,
I
you've
do.
you've got a lot of activities going. How in the world do you organize all this?
Well, like my husband, I am a very go-getter kind of person. I've never been of the mind that my perfect vacation is to sit on the beach, doing nothing. My
Uh,
idea of a perfect vacation is let's go zip lining, let's go hiking, let's climb up to the top of a volcano. We're doers, not sitters.
right. Okay. Do you make lists?
All the time. Yeah.
Okay.
Post Post-it notes are my best friend.
I kind of thought so. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, what are we doing today? You know what I have found helpful lately is instead of, because I'll make, huge long lists, is I'll make the list and then intuitively go after the one that I think is the most important, try to get in touch,
Oh yeah.
you know,
This is
now you teach a lot. Can you talk about your personal practice? What that looks like?
Sure. Well, I'm currently in the middle of doing my level 2 Kundalini certifications. I finished
Okay.
2 of the 5 required sets, so I'm working on the second set, which is mind and well, I did mind and meditation, and now I'm doing well, no. See, I'm already losing track because I'm doing so much. I did authentic relationships. Now I'm finishing up mind and meditation. So I'm doing daily mantra practice. And what we do is we have a 40-day mantra practice after the end of our actual study. So even though I did this study back in March, March and April, this will go on to the end of June because of that mantra practice. I also am constantly putting together new classes, and before I do the class, I go through my sets to make sure that it flows smoothly with me because I
Oh,
don't want to teach something that I am not capable of demonstrating. Since 99% of my teaching is online, I have to demo it. So if I can't do it, then it's not fair to ask anyone else to do it. The teaching that I do in person, uh, I most of the time I'm doing that with the students, but I also like to get up and move around the room and just watch out for people, make adjustments as
hmm,
necessary. I'm sitting right now in my home office, which is about a 12 by 10 room, very small room. But I do a lot of yoga practice here. I keep a couple of mats here. And there are times when I'll be listening to an audiobook. I'll be on the mat doing yoga, just listening to the book and feeling how the flow leads me depending on what I'm hearing. That also goes with listening to recorded music. So my own yoga practice is not set times of day. It's more like when the spirit leads, right?
oh, yeah, absolutely. I have, my harmonium is right behind me. My guitar is sitting next
Oh
to
yeah.
it. I've got some flutes over here. I've got a keyboard to my left. And for
Hey, what do you see? Drums. There's a
yeah,
ukulele back
yeah,
there, buddy.
yeah. And for me, I do the same thing. It's like, I'll be working on projects and then boom, I'll come in to my studio and I'll grab my harmonium or
Oh,
guitar.
yeah.
And I usually the first thing I do in the morning is I grab a cup of coffee and I sit next to my harmonium and I allow whatever happens to happen. And that, that sort
Right.
of starts my day.
And that's
Uh,
where you can also start creating your own mantras.
yes,
I have quite a few that I've written, and I hope that a book that I do in the future will be a collection of the mantras that I've written because I want to share them with everyone. But
beautiful.
one of them came from a poster that I saw online, which an elementary school teacher had put together and put up in her elementary school. And the poster said, "I am grounded. I am where I need to be." And there were several other sentences that were very self affirming.
Yeah.
And that struck a chord. And I thought, I can put this to music. I can put this into a mantra. People need to hear this. And now that's one of the ones that I use quite frequently because it's so self-affirming. So, yeah.
Well, I
Y
love it that you're doing them in English too, as well. I like the idea of, Ragini talks about that. She was my coach for 7 years. She was in Milwaukee, and she talks about, taking small phrases in Sanskrit, and the fact that they're in Sanskrit, means that we are not thinking about whatever that is, and
Right.
it takes us to a different space as we do this repetitively. So it kind of takes us out of our headspace. And then I remember Krishna Das saying, uh, it's more difficult to chant in the language with which you were
Yeah.
abused.
Good
And,
point. Yeah,
and,
that's true.
yet there, to be able to do that, and David Newman emphasized that a lot in his teaching, too, is, sing in English as well.
Yes.
To take those phrases and words that capture like you just did and then repeat them over and over again until your body gets it,
Exactly.
and
Although I will say one of the beauties of chanting in Sanskrit is that Sanskrit was developed, and it is one of the earliest human documented languages. It was developed by the priestly class for the chanting of the sacred Vedic words. And so each syllable and the way the tongue hits the teeth and the flesh within the mouth is specifically touching different energy points in the mouth. There are charts of this in Ayurveda texts. But I find that also doing sound baths and incorporating some mantras into sound baths helps the
uh,
attendees because the brain is always searching for patterns. It's what our brain does. That's why we like songs that have section A, a bridge, and then you go back to section A. Sound baths and singing in different languages help to break that pattern so that you go more intentionally with the flow and you don't get sort of digging a flagpole and saying, "This is where I stop. I'm going to die on this hill." No, there are many other hills to discover. Keep rolling, keep going.
wow. And
Yeah.
that's beautiful. And then how do you, no, it's hard to do it without demoing. I was about to ask the question, how do you do that? But that would be a demo.
Well, I can say this. When I'm doing a sound bath, I'm surrounded by gongs, singing bowls, different percussion and string instruments. But usually I will be playing something with my hands, not a flute, obviously, and then chanting. And really, all I need is one or two bowls to chant to. One of my favorite instruments is a tanpura, and that's a four-string
Mhm.
drone instrument
Yep.
used with Indian classical music, and that was made to be the perfect partner for chanting. So I'll usually do different mantras which are about healing, like the Mahamrityunjaya mantra, the great death-defying mantra, or something like that. People will generally not understand a word of what I'm saying in a sound bath, but they let the words flow over them
Mhm.
because we're in a darkened room. They're either lying down or they're sitting with their eyes closed. And that sound just becomes part of the sonic atmosphere, which is washing over them.
Yeah.
Rarely have I ever had someone come up and ask me, what was the meaning of the words you said? They just accept that I'm not telling them to go jump off a cliff.
Yeah, there's a trust
There's a
level there,
trust.
right?
There's a trust.
And,
Yes.
in the West for a long time, and you're reinventing that and reinterpreting that, but, for a long time, it was asana. It was the poses that
Hmm.
defined yoga.
Yep.
You're expanding that definition greatly, uh, and but it was already there, from India, but how do you bring your students from a place of, oh, I'm going to do yoga, which means asana, which
Mm.
means movement, uh, to mantra, to mythology, to some of the other parts, to mudras, to some of the other parts of yoga? How do you do that?
Well, for for one thing, realize that asana, breath work, mantra, they're not separate pieces like the cup game. You're not shifting the cups around. They're actually all linked. They're chains. So all the chains are linked. When you start out, say, seated in a cross-legged pose at the start of a yoga class, you're breathing. So why not start humming? Just keep your lips closed and go. You don't realize that what you're doing is you're chanting one of the most ancient bij or seed mantras, and that is HUM. Hum, hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Then it's easy to go from there into two-note mantras. What could I use? Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. And then, because I'm chanting Om Mani Padme Hum, the jewel of consciousness lies in the lotus of my heart, why not bring into it some mudras? Let's do Padma Mudra, Lotus Mudra. Om Mani Padme Hum. Why not make it a moving mudra? Let's have that lotus blossom, and then let's have it die back and go back into the ground, and then blossom again. And so this is a moving mudra, which is part of Satanama, a very famous Kundalini chant. And that brings into mind the fact that as we live, we grow, we discover our dharma, our bodies die, we go back into the primal elements. But then if we believe in the Hindu belief that we are reborn into a different form, then that spirit comes back, blossoms again. And I really love the Hindu mindset that we are reborn into other lives until we learn all the lessons that our soul needs to learn. And then we achieve moksha, which is liberation. There's a very famous line from the Mahamrityunjaya Mudra, which says, as the ripened fruit is released from the stem, so the soul of the one who chants these words will be released from the bondage of death. He will achieve moksha. Yeah, love that.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I learned that word because I used to do live music and yoga at Moksha Yoga in Chicago, so I had to learn what the word meant. So
yeah, it's amazing.
Speaking of, because I've recorded and done a lot of live music for yoga, do you integrate music into your practice, like recorded music as you're teaching yoga?
Actually, to this point, I have preferred not to use pre-recorded music because as a lifelong musician, I mean, I taught voice for 42 years. I prefer to keep it live. And my reasoning that I use when people ask me is before the advent of recording technology, all you had was live.
Exactly.
And so, so call me old fashioned, call me a Luddite, but I'm thinking I can play the bowls, the gong, the stringed instruments. I can even pick up a flute every now and then. But I like that old fashioned way of doing it because then it keeps it very real. As you know,
well, not everybody has the gifts that you have.
That is true. That is true.
And so the recorded music, but
you also know that a singing bowl played live vibrates differently in a room than a recording of a singing bowl, simply because of the way the sonic reverberations interact with the space in which you're holding court.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I'm not dissing the recording. I'm just saying, for me, that is my preference.
Of course not. You're married to a sound engineer, for crying out loud.
Yeah. I like where I live. I don't want him to kick me out.
Well, I do both. If I haven't taught yoga since 2020. At least in a class. And but when I did, it was nice to have all the instruments there, I could move. And I've got a friend in Florida that we're working on a project together right now, and she sings to her class. She just she'll just start singing, in the middle of poses and sing for a while, and then move people to the next asana.
I do that in my Friday chair yoga class that I teach about 7 miles away, and the population is older than I am, mostly women. But if something that we're doing strikes up a funny little note, I'll burst into song. We usually Broadway songs or old pop songs and things. They start singing along. They know it, and it's a pretty wonderful thing. And they leave with a smile on their faces. Sometimes they even leave laughing. And that means that I've raised up their hum, and now they take that higher personal vibration out into their worlds, into their homes.
You know, I had someone say to me once after a yoga class, she said, "I don't know what it is, but every time I do a yoga practice, I feel different at the end."
Yeah.
And it's like I wanted to say I didn't, but well, you just went through 26 metaphors. You know,
True.
it's it's possible, that even those archetypes, have
Yeah.
a way of changing us.
And even Patanjali, the ancient Vedic philosopher who wrote the Yoga Sutras of
Hmm.
Patanjali, one of the first things he says is practice yoga out in nature because the sounds
Yeah.
of nature, the feel of the ground beneath your feet, the sky over your head, you truly feel that you are at one with the universe. In my little 10 by 12 room with a 7-foot high ceiling, I'm in a box. It's hard to feel at one with nature here.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. And that's it. I'm curious. What do you see in the work that you do, and others that are doing similar work, to yours? I see you as you're providing a lot of good stuff to all of us, through the work that you do. How is this providing hope?
Well, as a teacher, and that's my dharma is to teach, I amass knowledge for the sole purpose of then giving it away. So it's kind of like a farmer. I sow the seed, I till the ground, plant it, raise the crop, and then I turn around and I give it away. Some people might donate to help my work, others don't. I'm fine with that. Um, I s- I see it as the things which have helped me, which is the breathing, the chanting, the mudras, and the asanas. I can help other people to get some of that for themselves. And hopefully that plants a seed in their personal field that maybe they will nurture and then harvest and then give away. So there's a concept in Kundalini called the golden chain. And that
Mm,
is that as you study and refine your techniques as a Kundalini teacher and teach others, you strengthen the next link, which is then added to that chain. And that is what keeps the chain growing. So for thousands of years now, yoga has incorporated chanting of mantras. Later, kirtan, the chanting of mantras, shlokas, and bhajans. And then more recently, sound baths, which help people to achieve a level of self-awareness and also deep relaxation that our that our modern 20th century life does not make very available.
no, no, and that's to me that's hopeful.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
that's what's
Because we
bringing
could very
hope. And
easily hamster wheel ourselves into a state of depression. And
mhm.
we see a great many people even resorting to suicide because they cannot deal with what this world is about. What I'm trying to offer is a different way of getting off the hamster wheel so that you don't feel like it's hopeless. There's no need for me to stick around. There is a need for you to stick around. You're the field that the seed needs to be planted in. If there's no field, how can others reap the benefit?
By the way, as a former psychotherapist as well, the work that you're doing is also trauma work.
It is.
It's healing, as Besser van der Kolk,
The body keeps the score. Great
yeah, the
book.
body keeps the score.
Great book.
And I got to study with him actually
Ah,
in his early days before he wrote the book,
ah,
and we were doing work on addictions and trauma, and I got a certification through Harvard,
yes,
which he was teaching out of during that time. So I feel honored, I've had that experience, but yoga,
there's
and the movement and the mudras and the mantras and all of it uh, became part of that beautiful transformation out of traumatic events into life, and so
yes,
that's another piece that you do,
it is. And
through
there is a
through your
book
work.
I have called The Yoga Therapy for Fear, and that is very helpful too.
Yeah.
It's a study in the field
Oh,
of yoga therapy, but very accessible to people even who aren't planning to make yoga therapy their career.
that's fantastic.
Mm.
How can people find you
Okay. They can go
to start
to
with things?
they can Google my name, Sandra Sluberski, Sluberski, or they can go to my website. I have actually 4 different domains which point to the same website. Probably the easiest
Okay.
one is sandrasluberski.com. They can also go to Works, WORX, LLC.com, because yes, I am an LLC, because I have SBS Yoga Works, ta-da! Yes, SBS Vocal Work, I know, it's a music, I gotta sing it, right? I have SBS Vocal
Absolutely.
Works, which is my voiceover company, and that will point to it. I also have in development a page called westrushsilkies.com. And this is a little side thing that I do. I raise silky bantam hens, not for meat. They're my
I
pets.
saw that.
Yeah. And I take these to libraries. I've done libraries in 5 surrounding counties now for the past 4 years. And I do programs on backyard chicken keeping. But the really popular programs are chicken story time, because every library every week has a story time for children under kindergarten age. So I bring my chickens, and I bring illustrated children's storybooks that have stories about chickens. But here's the beauty of it. This summer, all of the libraries in Western New York are having the same theme, and that is dinosaurs. Kids love dinosaurs. Do you recall back in about 2006, it was proved definitively that the closest living relative to the great Tyrannosaurus Rex is the modern-day chicken. So I am booked solidly with tons of chicken story time, because I have books about chickens and dinosaurs, and I have chickens. And these little guys, I bathe them, I put diapers on them, we go to libraries, and the adults and the children are just as charmed by them as I am. So I'm actually teaching children and adults that chickens are not just utility animals, they're actually pets. They have personalities, they're very charming. I'm trying to widen people's scope of other creatures on this planet have just as much right to be here as you do.
Oh, that is what a beautiful way to end this podcast. And I want to thank you. We'll stay on for a minute afterwards, by the way, just to debrief. But I want to thank you for being here. And for those of you who may not know, I create Native American flutes, and I have been doing that for more than 35 years. I have made
This is Dennis. This is Dennis.
Yeah, there you go. That'd be me. Krishna and Kokopelli are my my people, and so I do that, and you can find me at DennisHawkArtist.com, and as I said, we'll stay on for a minute afterwards, and again, so much thank you.
Thank you.
Sri Ram